Thank you for joining with me this morning. Welcome to Practical Forgiveness Techniques. This is expanding on ideas and concepts and tools that you could use in order for forgiveness to be easier for you. Now, it all boils down to you need to make the choice. I mean, somebody else is not going to do this for you. You've got to do it. It's all a self-help kind of thing. I think it's probably important that we talk about why forgiveness is so important. How many people are course students here? Course in Miracles? 1, 2, and you just started, or you're about to start. 3. If you have the book, yeah, we'll count that. You have the book. If you have the book, it's okay. Yeah, it's a start. I see many of you were here last month. Do we have anybody here that was not here last month or the month before? Okay. 2, Donnie was not here. Okay, great. I'll just give a quick review of who I am and why I do A Course in Miracles. I was raised very strict Catholic, much like Deb. We went to church 6 days a week. The Catholic grade school that I went to was full of nuns. My teachers, the first 8 grades, were all Catholic nuns. My father had 2 sisters who were nuns, a cousin who was a priest, and 2 cousins who were nuns. And my mother was studying to be a nun. When she got sick, went home, met my father, and they ended up getting married. So I come from a very heavily German Catholic background. So it's church. I, much like Deb, I also rejected it. I was a very good Catholic boy. I was even an altar boy. I rejected it once I got out of high school and into college. So far rejecting that I just completely blew off all religious Christianity thinking. And I went so far as to say, oh, there is no God. You could say that I was agnostic. And I was many years that way. And after my first wife and I divorced, I was dating a young lady. And she asked me if I've ever heard of a gentleman named Edgar Cayce. And I had not. This is the mid-'80s, never heard of him. And he goes, why? Well, you've never heard of America's greatest psychic? I said, no, I haven't. So he said, well, you need to read these books. And I bought There Is a River. First of all, who knows who Edgar Cayce is? Okay, many of you do. Okay, he is America's greatest psychic. He was around the turn of the century, early 1900s, 1920s. He would go into a deep state of meditation, or actually a trance, and he would get medical intuitive information and help heal people with this information. So I read There Is a River, The Story of Jesus, The Story of Atlantis, and a bunch of other books. And parallel to that, I was also reading a book called Gem Elixirs and Vibrational Healing by Garudis. Now, this was just curiosity reading for me. And it's a book that says that certain types of stones resonate with certain parts of the body, and if you have problems with certain parts of the body, you can wear these particular stones, and they help heal that part of the body. Well, I found that interesting. So I had an interest in spiritual matters, but absolutely no interest in any kind of Catholic teachings. One of my clients, I've been a music producer for many, many years, produced music for 35 years in Austin, Texas, many years before that in Missouri. And one of my clients was very happy with a project that I did for them, and they invited me over to their house for a spaghetti supper. And so I went over for the supper, and after the supper, they took my plate from me, and they slammed this book down in front of me where the plate was and said, you have to read this. And I was kind of taken back, and I said, well, what is it? So I started thumbing through the pages, and I read various texts at random. Everything I read resonated as true to me. And then I finally turned to the beginning of the book, and I read the introduction. This is A Course in Miracles. It's a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can choose the curriculum. It only means that you can choose when you want to take it. So, that read as true to me. And after I spent some time with the book, I said, this is absolutely my teaching. This is something that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So as many course students do at the beginning, when you get really excited about the book, you start buying multiple copies and you give it to all your friends. Go read this, read this. So I did that for a while until I finally realized that, wait a minute, This is my spiritual path. This is not their spiritual path. Everybody finds their own spiritual path at the right time, at the appropriate time. So that's how I was introduced to A Course in Miracles. This was 1988. October of 1988 is when I started A Course in Miracles. I have been doing it for all those years, although towards the beginning of 2000 and in the early parts of the 2000, I didn't do it as much. I knew it was true, but I didn't really practice it much. Then I followed a prompt. Prompts are my word for inspiration. Whenever I get an inspiration to do something, I call it a prompt. I got a prompt to do an internet search. So I did an internet search for just various things, Course in Miracles related stuff, and I found a lady named Regina Dawn Akers. And through her, she introduced me to another gentleman named Dove Fishman. And the short story is that I started teaching in 2006. And actually, I've been recording all my teachings since 2007. They're all available on my website if you're interested in my teaching since 2007. It's LarrySeyer.com. Click on the link that says Course in Miracles, free downloads. There's over 200 of them there. So that's enough of the introduction. Why is forgiveness important, and why do we need to do it? It turns out, according to what the Course teaches us, and this is what my experience has shown me also, that the judgments we make of things and people outside of us, in other words, anything that we perceive that is not us, those judgments influence how we feel about everything. I can give you a case in point. Let's say if you wake up in the morning and you're walking from your bed to the bathroom and you stub your toe, it hurts. And you get upset. And then many times, not always, many times, and something else will go wrong. And by the end of the day, your whole day stinks because, oh, it just started out wrong. I got up and I stubbed my toe, or I got up and I did this. And then I got this phone call from this person that I can't stand. Right. Okay? So it has a snowballing effect. When we make judgments about other things and other people, negative judgments, and we judge them as something less than perfect, what it tends to do is influence our perception about everything in our life. It tends to cover a blanket over the perfection that exists everywhere. Our mood, our feelings, our experience of life in a body on this planet is directly influenced by the judgments we have placed upon the things that we determine is outside of ourselves, anything not us. This is why forgiveness is so important. Now, there are metaphysical reasons why forgiveness is important too, and we can touch about that, and maybe we should at least brush over that. When we forgive, we release the attachments that we have to those things. Did you know that when you hate somebody or hate something, you have made a connection to that thing? You've made an unholy relationship with something else. That thing is responsible for my pain. You have made an unholy relationship with that thing. When we forgive and we release, what happens is that relationship is healed and it's returned to the holy state. Now, many teachings, including Unity, tell us that God is everything and God is perfection. We talked about this last month. If God is everything and if God is perfection, if we accept that as true, if we do, then anything that we perceive that is not perfect must be illusion. It must be our interpretation of perfection. It must be. Because if God is everything and if everything is perfect, if we don't see perfection, it's something we've done. There's no way around that logic. I mean, you can say, okay, well, yeah, but. But if God is everything, And if God is perfect, that's all there is. So we're getting back to another reason why forgiveness is so important, because when we judge other things and other people as imperfect, we are painting the face of perfection a color that it is not. See what I'm saying? Every relationship is a holy relationship. Every one of you and me, we're all wholly connected. And that's really the definition of holy. Wholeness, wholeness. The one infinite creator experiencing for a short time individuality in a body. But we are all perfect beings, the Son of God. As Deb was saying this morning, we are all collectively the Son of God. So, forgiveness and why it's important. I've just given you several reasons and explanations why forgiveness is so important. But let's get practical. If you're driving your car and somebody cuts in front of you and you're in a hurry and they do something that appears to be really stupid, maybe you're even in an accident or whatever. Maybe they flip you the bird. Maybe they do something that really upsets you. How can we forgive that? How can that possibly be perfect? How can we look at that as perfect? Anybody ever experienced road rage? Yeah. Did you know that within that experience is perfection? Anybody want to doubt that? Anybody want to say that's not true? And it's okay too, because this is going to be interactive today. We're going to have a dialogue back and forth about this. And if you don't feel like confronting, that's fine too. That's okay. Here's one technique you can use when you're in that situation. You can allow the person, well, first of all, stop. Stop what you're doing. When we have an interaction with somebody and we're about to create an unholy relationship, we're about to give the person a finger, or we're about to yell at him, or we're about to decide that he is or she is the lowest person on this planet. Before we do that, stop for a moment and do nothing. Get still. And allow whatever it is. There's going to be a feeling that's going to come over you. It's going to be, I hate that person. It's going to come over you. That's okay. Let that feeling wash over you and let it offer everything that it can to you. It's going to say, that person is evil. I hate that person. He needs to die. Somebody take his license away. I'm using he. It could be a she. I don't know. Allow that to happen, but then decide. See, this is the great thing about being free. And the Son of God was created free. That's us. The Son of God was created free. And with freedom comes the ability to choose. So when that choice and that thought comes over you, that person needs to die, choose not to do anything about it. Allow the feeling of hatred, resentment, anger to pass. And once it is past, try to bless that person and thank him or her for the experience. Now, that's one step. Some of you may feel like that's not possible. If I decide somebody is evil, well, then they're evil for the rest of their life. Is anybody like this? My first wife was like this. I love her. To this day, I'm still the evil person in her life. She cannot stand me. She hates me. That's okay. I still love her. Anybody have anybody like that in their life, or they just, there's no way you could possibly forget him? Okay, back there in the back. Yeah. Does anybody want to share about this? Maybe we could work this out together. Maybe I could show you some examples together. And we can use different names. We can use alternate names. As a group, we could all learn. Does anybody want to share? Yes, sir.
I got one. A few years back, my daughter was in an abusive relationship, and sent her to the hospital a couple of times.
Right.
And did some time in jail and stuff like that. And I tried in my heart to really say, look, if I could look him in the eye and say I forgive him. Now it's gotten better over the years. I don't want to. My first instinct is not to kill him.
That's okay if you have that impulse. Just don't act on it.
Now it's like, okay, is my forgiveness of him of just like one avoidance? I really don't know what that feeling would be, is if our paths crossed and we saw eye to eye. Whether the feelings would crop up, or am I in this natural state of forgiveness that I think that I am?
Yeah, that's a good one, and that's a tough one. I put that right alongside child abuse. And I think, because she is your child, right? Yeah, and I totally relate to that. There's a couple things we need to talk about, and I'm going to address your example. There are two types of forgiveness. We talked about this last month, and I think it's important that we define the difference between the two, because when I say forgiveness, many churches and many institutions teach this type of forgiveness, the following kind of forgiveness. They teach that somebody has done something wrong. That's the first step. And the second thing they teach around that is that, but I'm going to let it go. Okay, so their traditional teachings of forgiveness is somebody's done something wrong, but I'm going to let it go. Now, I don't think you have to be a genius to figure out that really behind that thought system is judgment. Somebody has done something wrong, but I'm going to let it go. Now that gets back to what Deb was talking about in the service today. That is denial. Because you're denying that you have judged them to be wrong. And what you're doing is burying that judgment. Okay? All right, so that's one type of judgment. The other, we can talk about the proper use of denial in just a minute. And the course actually addresses the proper use of denial and explains it in detail if you're interested. The type of forgiveness that I'm talking about, and we are discussing today, is the following. It can be described as, very simply, as no one has ever done anything wrong. Everything is perfect. Everything happens for a reason. There is only love. There is only God. There is only oneness. Now, within that thought system, the one that I just described, within that thought system, you can see that there is no judgment. There is no condemnation. Okay? So we have two different thought systems here. Now, I'll get back to your example. I totally relate to where you are. If somebody did something like that to my daughter, it would be very hard to forgive. I totally agree. But let's get back to our stated truths at the beginning of this talk. God is everything, and God is perfect. If that is true, then there must be something about that relationship, the boyfriend and the girl and your daughter, that you don't know about. There must be something going on there that you don't know about. Right? There must be. I don't know what it is. We could play the guessing game. I have no idea. We could guess that maybe in a previous life she was the abuser. I have no idea. Maybe this is a guess. Maybe both of them came into your life so that you could learn to forgive. I have no idea. I'm guessing. I'm putting out things. What I am suggesting is that we have chosen to be individuals. We have chosen to be people who have forgotten the truth of who we are. We have chosen to be separate from one another. And with that choice to be separate comes the truth that we don't know everything. We don't know everything. We only have a little slice of the pie. We only see what we see, we hear what we hear, we experience what we have. We do have a choice. We always have a choice. And the choice we have is to decide how we're going to react to anything that we see. It doesn't matter if it's your daughter. It doesn't matter if it's your son. It doesn't matter if it's a baby. It doesn't matter if it's you. It doesn't matter if your contemporaries have decided to take your body and nail it on a cross and throw spears in it. What matters is your decision to paint perfection as something other than perfection and to allow it to be. Now, I think it's important that we also talk about one other thing, and that is what the Course describes as illusion. How many people have read the Course and know that they talk about illusion? Okay. I probably, very few of you raised your hand, so I should talk about this. The Course states, in no uncertain terms, that there is no world. Now, the first time I read that, I thought that was ridiculous. There is no world. One of the first lessons it teaches you when you do the workbook is you look at an object and you say, that object doesn't mean anything. Another lesson is, I have given all the meaning to that chair that it has. I have given all the meaning that chair has. Now, the Course was written by the entity who is Jesus. For those of you who don't know, he is the author of the Course. Came through Helen Schuckman. We talked about that last 2 months. I gave you the history of the Course in Miracles and where it came from. And we can see just from the first few lessons that if we give everything all the meaning it has to us, what a wonderful opportunity and powerful position it is for us. Now think about that. We have given everything that we perceive all the meaning it has to us. What was the first two things we talked about in this talk today? God is everything and God is perfection. Now, Jesus comes in the Course in Miracles and he says, we have given all the meaning to anything that we interact with. All the meaning that I have for this chair, I have given it to it. All the meaning for this microphone. All the meaning for every one of you. To the stand. Everything we see in this, we have given the meaning for it. The clock on the wall. We gave the clock meaning. And we can see from that since we are the ultimate chooser, we are the decider of how we are going to react to the things that we perceive as outside of ourselves. Forgiveness is the key element to let go of anything that we have decided to be unworthy. Anything unworthy. And we already know that when we decide, and we've talked about, when we decide things are unworthy, our experience in this life is one of unhappiness. So the key to happiness in this life is the forgiving of everything and accepting it as it is and loving everything. Love everything, love everyone, love every situation, forgive it, Forgiveness, by the way, is exactly the same. The kind of forgiveness I'm talking about is exactly the same as accepting. Accepting everything as it is without wanting it to change. Accepting everything as it is without wanting it to change. And you can see that if God is perfection and if God is everything, and since we know that we only have a slice of the pie, we know we've already decided that we're only going to know this much, only the things that we've experienced, it makes total sense that we allow everything to be as it is and trust. Trust. How many people have trust issues? How many people, I'll see that. Yeah, I do too. Trusting is a hard issue, isn't it? Especially if you've been abused as a youngster, or if you have trusted somebody in your past and then they did not do what you expected them to do. Trust, however, goes hand in hand with everything is perfection and everything is divinely inspired. God is perfect. I think it would be good if we took a moment. Here I've talked for almost 30 minutes. I didn't even offer a prayer of silence. I got excited and just got up here and started talking. I'm excited. Let's take about 2 minutes here and get quiet. We're just going to do a little guided meditation here. Get comfortable, whichever way, whatever comfortable is for you. Heavenly Father, thank you for all that you have given us. Thank you for the life I have. Thank you for the love you have shared. Help me to release and let go all that I have judged. Show me the way, Father, that I may remember the truth of who I am, that I may awaken to the truth and experience the fullness, the oneness, the wholeness that you are. Not my will, Father, but your will. Show me that trusting you is the light, the truth, and the way. did something a little bit different this week. I decided to leave my gear over there, so I walk over there. Set it up once instead of twice. As I mentioned earlier, we are talking about practical forgiveness techniques. And the first one I mentioned was when you're in a situation when you really, really hate someone, the first step would be to stop and choose not to react. Stop and choose not to react. Now let's get another technique. Let's say you are sitting somewhere, doesn't matter, in your meditation, and a memory comes up. A memory comes up of something that happened years ago, and you really can't stand that person. Let's make the person's name Betty. It doesn't really matter what her name is. And Betty did something that really hurt you, or you feel like Betty did something wrong, and she wronged you. And this may have been 20 or 30 years ago. And to this day, you still can't stand Betty. You can't stand her. She's done you wrong. How can we get past that? Because remember, our judgments about Betty are influencing our lives today. Okay? We've already shown that our judgments influence our happiness. So that judgment you made of Betty 20, 30 years ago is still with you because you still have the memory. You still have the memory of it. And you have not forgiven it. You have not let it go. You have not accepted it. So here's another technique. Sit quietly. Allow the memory of the event to come back. Allow the memory of the event to come back. Allow all of the emotion surrounding that event to encompass your awareness. In other words, allow the anger, the feelings, the hurt to do everything they can with you while you're sitting quiet. Allow the full experience to be there. And then choose again. Choose once again. This time, choose not to do anything about it. Now, you're fairly safe from Betty now, right? Because, 20, 30 years ago, she's not going to come back and do anything to you, right? It's just a memory. Here's an extra step to do. Once you allow the experience to come over you, you let it pass. It may take a few moments for that to pass. Let it give all it can to you. Choose not to react. Choose to simply watch the event happen. Be the uninterested observer if it's possible. You're just looking. See Betty over here. See yourself over there. Say, Betty did this to my 20-year-old self. Look at it. Look at this situation. And say, I'm going to decide today not to react to that. And I'm just going to let that go. Now here's the final part of this step. How to really eliminate it from your life. If you want to eliminate it from your life. That gets it there. That gets you to that's the memory. It's still there. The final step is to thank Betty for the experience. Does not mean that you have to choose to have that experience again. Does not mean that you condone Betty's action. Does not mean that it was right. Does not mean it's wrong. It does not mean you're making a decision. You are not going to decide anything about the rightness or wrongness of the action. You're going to just thank Betty for the experience and let it go. Now, how many people, and it's okay if you do, are having difficulty with that last part of this, thanking somebody for doing you wrong? It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. what that means is, it could be, let's just say it could be, that you still insist on being right. You insist on being right. Our need to be right is tremendous. It is very powerful. We want to be right above all else. We want to be right even if we know we're wrong. That's just part of human nature. We want to be right. How many people enjoy being wrong? Not me. Not me. Right. Nobody enjoys being wrong. So you want to be right. It's part of the experience. It's part of being a human. I want to be right. So therefore, if at 20 years ago you decided that Betty was the scum of the earth, you're going to have to face that. You're going to have to decide, I could have been wrong about Betty. I could have been wrong. So you have to address this, maybe I'm not right. And that could be ugly. It doesn't feel good either when you're looking at yourself and you're going, oh, maybe I shouldn't have judged her so harshly. That's possible. But remember the first two things we talked about at the beginning of this talk. God is everything and God is perfection. If God is everything and God is perfection, there can be no sin. There can be no guilt. There can be no wrong. There can only be decisions we have made in our mind to judge perfection as something other than what it is. That's all it can be. Therefore, I share that to explain that when you're going through the process and your quiet meditation and you're recalling Betty from 20 years ago, and you're allowing the experience to flow over you, all the emotions you had, and you're seeing it in the third person, you're seeing Betty and you're seeing yourself 20 years ago, and you're interacting, and you're deciding not to judge that, and you're going to allow it to be, accept it as it was. You're not saying that you want it again. Let's be very clear about that. You're not saying that you want it again. You're going to accept it as it was. And then you're going to thank Betty for the experience. The kind of thank I'm talking about is very similar to goodbye. There's the aloha, there's the hello. Hello, welcome you in my life. And then there is the goodbye, the leaving of the life. Thank you for your time. Thank you, goodbye. That's what I'm talking about. Because as we hold on to the resentment for Betty from 20 years ago, it's still there. I can't even describe it without telling you that holding on to resentment for Betty influences your happiness today. So, if you can't get to the point where you're thanking Betty, that means, or it could mean, I'll just say that, it could mean that you are insisting on being right. And that I was right about Betty, and I'm not willing to change my mind about Betty. And that's okay. You just need to understand that your happiness today is influenced by your decisions and your judgments of other people and other things.
I can do all the stuff that you're talking about in the sense of acknowledging, standing back and understanding that this perhaps was for my best, that this incident happened. I can also address the person first, bringing me to self-knowledge about myself, fine up to there. But, and I'm sort of hearing what you're saying when you can say goodbye. I don't want to put myself back in that situation and feel those things again because they are life
I understand. When you say thank you, I want to be very clear. I've said this several times. I'll say it again. You're not saying you want it again. The purpose of this exercise is to release and let go. Then that's your job is done. Because there is something made by God that we all have and that we all share that takes care of it once we let it go. And that's called the Holy Spirit.
And we put ourselves in a situation that we then consciously choose not to be in the presence of that person.
Absolutely. The one thing that each one of us has, above all else, is the ability to choose. Even if you are a prisoner in Germany in the 30s and Adolf Hitler, you have the ability to choose. Even if you're strapped in a chair with all your limbs and you can't move, you have the ability to choose. Even if they've got knives sticking in every part of your body and they're cutting you up, you have the ability to choose. You have the ability to choose to react or not. It's always your choice. You have the ability to choose to let go. You have the ability to choose to let go. So I bless you and I thank you for sharing with that. Absolutely. Let's be clear. When I say thank you, when I say doing the part of the exercise that is thanking Betty for the experience in our imaginary experience here, what we are saying is goodbye. You're letting go. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I can barely hear you. Could you speak up, please? Uh-huh. No. We absolutely does not mean that you have to go embrace Betty again. You already had Betty's experience. Thank you, Betty. We're moving on. Thank you. But see, by you condemning Betty, you have kept part of her with you. You have kept the experience. The worst part of Betty you have kept in your life, and she's with you today. That's the part we're trying to get rid of. You don't have to walk to Betty again. You'll never see Betty again. Don't have to. Thank you, Betty. That was great. Bye. Next. Do not, did you hear what I said? That was great. Thank you. That was great. I choose not to do that again. Yes.
So, what if they keep showing up in your life? Like I had an arch villain from a former job who I think I've forgiven
Yeah.
over and over.
Right.
But they come up in the weirdest ways.
Yeah.
Showing up.
Right.
So, would you say that's still unhealed issues going on? Why this person keeps magically reappearing again?
I cannot speak to your situation directly, but I can share in a personal experience. And this, I won't get into names or personal. I have found that situations like that where I'm with somebody and I have an issue with this person about some particular aspect of this person, and then I avoid that person, all of a sudden I get a new friend that has exactly the same characteristics. There's something going on here. Okay, what I believe is going on, this is just my belief, but I think you're right. I think it is unhealed issues. That person is being sent to you by God for a reason. If you have some issue with that person about some particular aspect of them, that's your issue. You got to let it go. Got to let it go. Yes, ma'am.
I grew up in science and mind. I went to a lot of camps.
Uh-huh.
3 times a day camp. There was what exercises that we did. And the one thing that I'm hearing that's different, or not different, missing, is the asking the question, which we're trained to ask as soon as something happens to us. Why did I create this, and what do I need to learn from it?
Okay.
You're skipping that
Yeah, on purpose.
over and over and over again. You're not learning that lesson. If you're creating for yourself, you just keep ignoring it, you just keep forgiving, letting you're just going to keep
Well, let me address your question and tell you that we're actually addressing it by not answering it. Because underneath this entire process is the following thought system and the following statement. When you ask the question, why did that person come in my life? Why is this? What is the lesson I'm supposed to learn? You're wanting an explanation. You're turning on the logical mind. The logical mind. The logical mind is what screws us up. It is the part of the thinking process that determines right and wrong, left and right, up and down, good and bad. The logical mind is the thinking mind. And we don't want that. We want direct communication with God. And so by asking the question, what am I supposed to learn from this? It's okay to do that if you want to do that. You don't have to ask the question, because the moment you get silent and you're willing to be shown the truth and you're willing to be wrong, as long as you're not insisting on being right, you get quiet. In the stillness, the answer comes. Holy Spirit doesn't need you to ask it for anything to provide you what you need, because it already knows what you need. It sees the void. It sees the situation and heals it instantly. What our job is to get out of the way, to be still an instant and go home. One of the things the Course in Miracles says is, be still an instant and go home. Be still an instant and go home. How can you be still and go home? How can you be still and go anywhere, right? What it's talking about is the fact that we think a lot today. We think, in fact, our entire education system is about teaching people to think and addressing your situation from the science of mind, is that right? Where you're asking, well, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen? What is the lesson I'm supposed to learn? You don't need to know that. Absolutely don't need to know it, because if you truly do what I'm saying, if you do exactly what I'm saying, you'll know. The answer will be provided without you asking the question. Because in the silence, in the stillness, all things are healed. Everything is healed. In the silence, in the stillness. Holy Spirit, your direct communication with God, Holy Spirit fills all the voids, heals all the wounds. So, what I'm saying, and purposefully I'm saying, do not think, do not judge. Because when we get into that why and an explanation, it's very easy for the ego to step in and say, I now know what to do so this won't happen again. Right? I mean, well, why would you want to ask the question then? I'm just trying to figure out for myself. Well, are we here to learn lessons, or are we here to awaken? How long do we go to school before we awaken? Does anybody have the answer to that question? How long do we go to school before we awaken? The Course says that you can awaken instantly right now if you're willing to let go of your insistence on being right and be willing to be shown the truth of who you are. Our problem stems from our insistence on being right and this hold that we have on the thinking process. If you think about it, I'm going to give you an example. I'm not saying you're wrong at all, because we are free to choose everything. It's absolutely a path, and there are as many paths back to the one as there are people on the planet or in the universe. There is no one path that's right for everybody. Everybody has their own individualized curriculum, highly individualized. So if asking the question is for you, absolutely do it. Absolutely. I'm sharing for my teaching today that that's not necessary. For me, not necessary. Because when you ask the question, underneath the asking of the question is the belief that I want to be right. That's why I need to know. I need to know because I want to be right. And under that is the belief that I must know in order to be safe. And under that is the belief that I could be harmed. And under that is the belief that I am a body. And underneath that is the belief that there is death. And the Course says very clearly, there is no death. You are not a body. You are not the thinking mind. You are the one infinite creator. All of us collectively. Man, woman, child, white, black, race. Dead or alive. Dead being no body with body. We are all collectively the Son of God, because that's all there is. The first thing we talked about today, God is everything. That doesn't exclude, doesn't mean that God is everything except. It means God is everything. So that's why I don't address the asking of why, just to answer your question. It's kind of a long way. Yes, ma'am?
Going along her line.
Yes.
When something happens to me, I say, what is it for me to learn? I use that. Because
Great.
instead of asking why, I learned to say, what is it in this for me to learn? And that helps me, and then I sit and try to be quiet to see what answer comes.
It's fabulous. If that works for you, great. That's great.
You know,
As I said before, we all have individualized paths back to the one. That's a completely valid thing to do, to ask the question why. It's not for me. I have learned, or am learning, that as long as I sit in stillness and I'm willing to be shown, and I do not insist on being right, the answers come. I get answers. I could tell you stories about getting answers and knowledge that would blow your mind. Things that I should not know, but I do know. And that ability is not limited to just me. That ability belongs with each and every one of you, because we all have access to that information. And we have been conditioned to believe that we must learn. Everybody knows that, right? We've been taught. This is a very prevalent belief system on this planet, that you must learn something before you can do it. You must be taught, or you don't know how to do it. I'm saying that's not necessarily true. I'm saying that you can be in the stillness and you can learn everything. In the stillness is everything. It's possible to know things and never do them before. I'm a living example of that. I'll give you a little history. Carla knows a little bit about this, but actually a lot of this happened before she and I ever met. When I was a kid in grade school, they considered me mentally challenged. It was very emotionally upsetting for me, because I felt like I was okay, except that everybody around me felt like I was challenged. I was a little bit different. I did gravitate towards music more than I did anything else, but I was not really much of a book learner. I was not much of a reader. I was not much of a history buff. I was not much of a sports guy. In fact, still to this day, I don't do much about that. But I had a connection to Jesus, and I knew it. I knew I was connected to God. I knew it. Whether or not they taught me that in Catholic school, I don't know, and I don't care. I just knew I had the connection, and I trusted that connection. We're getting back to the trust issue. I trusted that connection so fully, and I believed so completely that anything that I needed to know, I would learn. And it turned out to be true. Later, as I got older, I developed an interest in becoming a recording studio engineer. It was my career for almost 40 years. And what I developed the ability to do was to walk to a piece of gear that I'd never seen before, had no idea what it is, and I would open my mind up to the possibility, I don't know what it is, but I'm willing to be shown. Is essentially, it's a word. Those are words, but that's really not the feeling I had inside. The feeling I had inside was, I'm open and I'm ready to receive. That's the feeling. I could walk up to the gear and I knew not only how to use it, what every control did, how to use it, how much to use, how much not to use, the circuitry inside of it, how it actually performed electronically. Now, this is from a guy who was considered mentally challenged in his younger day. That's one example. I'm not saying this or sharing this with you to say that I'm special, because I'm not. I'm saying that each and every one of you have this exact same ability if you're willing to just be quiet and listen. Because this communication, this level of communication between the God that is everything and you is constant all the time. But we are so busy thinking and so busy judging and so busy sorting things out that we don't hear it. We're busy thinking about Betty. We're busy thinking about, damn, if I wouldn't have walked into that dresser drawer this morning, my day would turn out good. We're busy thinking about things, thinking. But the level of communication and the level of knowledge that I'm trying to explain to you when I share it about the piece of gear involves no thinking. None. It's the complete emptying of the mind and accepting of the knowledge, sort of like a download. That's a good way to put it. Sort of like, I'm ready to receive, I'm open, and a download, boom, instantly knew everything about it. And it didn't just apply to electronic gear. It applied to music too. Ingrid and I play music together up here. It's wonderful, and I consider it a blessing to be able to share here in this church with Ingrid. And I don't think it's any accident that we were brought together, or that Carla and I are here in this church, or that any of you are here in this church right now. I don't think there's any accidents. Everything happens for a reason. But when we play together, she will play songs I've never heard before. I've never played before. Have no idea what the song is. I don't know what the title is. I don't know what the key is. I don't really care. But like the piece of gear, what I do is I get quiet and I listen. And I'm willing to receive. And then the notes come. A fraction of a second before I play the note, I get the note. I hear it and I play it. And I have no idea what the note is. I mean, I've had training, so I know now, but I mean, at the time that I'm doing this, I don't know what the notes are. I just play them. Oh, yeah, this is. And it comes out. What I played a while ago, I couldn't tell you what I played a while ago. I don't have an idea. I was just listening, and I played it. So my reason for sharing this is to offer some support to the idea that forgiveness is necessary in order to reestablish the communication, the conscious communication with the one infinite creator. And in my mind, that's what I want. That's all I want. I want the peace of God. I want nothing but the peace of God. I want direct communication with my source. That's it. That's what I want. And if you remember, Jesus said that he had that connection, and he established that until he got to the point where that's all he wanted to listen to was that one voice, and that's all he heard. He didn't hear the voice of the people that condemned him and said that he was a traitor. He did not hear the voice that said that he was upsetting the religious dogma of the day. He didn't hear the voice that said, my body has been misfigured. He didn't hear the voice that said, there's a nail in my hand, therefore I must feel pain. He didn't hear the voice that said, there's something in here and my blood no longer flows. He didn't listen to the voice. He chose, notice, even in that moment, he had a choice. He chose to hear communication from Spirit. I hesitate to use the word listen to the voice of God because it's not always a voice. Sometimes it's just knowledge. Just like for me, it's just a prompt. It's no, I'm supposed to do something. It's time for some music. I feel it. Music provides a great lesson for me. It was a wonderful gift to me. It was a wonderful gift. And the reason it's a great gift, not because I can do things like that or because I can make money with it or because I can make people happy. It's not that. The reason it's a wonderful gift for me is that it's a lesson teacher for me, in that I can play and forgive everything that I do at the same time. You know, one of the things that great musicians do not do is that when they make a mistake, they don't stop and go, damn, I made a mistake. God, I hate that note. Boy, if I just wouldn't have done that. In other words, if we took the time to be judgmental of our playing, like we spent the time to be judgmental of Betty, there would be no music. I'd be thinking about all the crap that went on. Like, oh no, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Instead, what you do when you play music and you make a mistake, you accept it, you forgive it, and you let it go. That's what the great thing about playing an instrument is because it's a living example of forgiveness. If you make a mistake, let it go. Hey. Or I like to say, what do you call it whenever you make a mistake in playing music? Oh, it's just jazz. Just jazz. Yeah, whatever. We have a few minutes left, and I've given you 2 examples, practical forgiveness techniques, and I would like to open the room up for any questions or comments, so that if you have an issue that you want some help with, I'd be happy to help you with you. So anybody want to share? Oh, yes, ma'am.
I have something that happened to me just recently, and I don't know, maybe I should just let it go, but I'm having a really, really difficult time with it. I had some, the amount of, the value of it is insignificant, but I had some very, very expensive children. Some of it was given to me by my children and family and, my parents, etc. Some of it I bought on my own, but I mean, it was worth a lot of money. But I'm having really, I look around and I see women especially wearing their jewelry, and it just tears me up because it's not the valuable stuff that stuff that my children need when they're in kindergarten. They can have the stuff that's worth money, diamonds and platinum and things like that. But the things that my children made, little beaded bracelets and necklaces, I can't ever get that back. And they probably threw it in a trash can because that wasn't worth anything that they could sell.
Right.
And I'm having a really hard time. I don't know who took it. There's a statewide ATV out at pawn shops, but who knows who has it? And I
Right.
can never ever get that stuff back that my children made. Ever.
I'm so sorry that you had that experience. Yeah.
Knowing that it's out there,
Right.
and probably in a ditch somewhere, except for the stuff that they would sell, of course.
Right. Hmm. Yeah, that's a tough one. When we have things that are sentimental to us, we've placed our feelings. We feel like that was part of me that you took. That was my life. That was my stuff, and and it doesn't mean anything to you, but they took it away. I totally understand. I want to share a tool with you, a couple of them, that you can use if you choose to maybe feel better about this. It is similar to the same tool we can use when you lose a loved one, when you lose a parent, or you lose somebody you love very much. The Course says nothing is ever lost. Now, temporarily, you are having the experience that is not there. I'm going to suggest that maybe this happened for a reason. Now, if it happened for a reason, then what can be your reaction to that? Right now, let me see if I could surmise what you're experiencing. You feel like you've been wrong. There's a part of you is missing. Somebody has taken part of your life. Something that was very valuable to you is no longer part of your life. Not only did they take that valuable part, but they probably don't even appreciate it at all. It could be in a trash somewhere. Can you see that it's possible? It is possible that happened for a reason. Don't think about it. Now, if you bring in the logical mind, if you bring in the thinking and say, I can't, then you'll just get confused and you'll get angry and upset. Can you accept that it's possible that this happened for a reason? It's possible, right? Possible? Okay. Can you then, if it's possible and it happened for a reason, can you accept it as something good for you, but you may not know what that is now. You may not know what that is. Right now, you're in a stage of confusion, and you're hurt, and you're rightfully so. I totally understand it. I would be the same position as you, I'm sure. Same feelings. But if you can get to the point where you can acknowledge the possibility that it happened for a reason, then if that possibility exists, then you must also be able to accept that there was a reason behind it. That's one tool. And if you get to that point where you say, there's a reason, but I don't understand it, and I'm hurt, and I just need help with this because I don't understand it, and it's really upsetting to me. If you can get to that point and let it go and say, I do not know, but I'm willing to accept whatever the reason is and whatever is supposed to happen. If you can get to that point, that will be helpful to you, because what is going on right now is that you have, forgive me, I have no way to say this. You have stated that you're missing something. Something was taken from you. Okay? But let's go back to what we talked about this morning. What the first thing we talked about. God is everything, and God is perfection. You are God. We are all collectively are God. You cannot possibly be missing anything except in your awareness right now. Okay? Have you read any books? Have you read any books about life after life, or after-death experiences, near-death experiences? Have you read any of those books? This might be helpful for you on this. There are books out there, several of them. I'll give you some titles: Life After Life, Life After Death, Near-Death Experiences. Some authors are Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Some of them are Michael Newton. If you're interested, these books document cases of people who have been declared clinically dead, and then they're revived, and they tell of a story after they're clinically dead of meeting loved ones that had passed many years before. Some of them meet their grandparents, some of them meet their parents, some of them meet children that died 50 years ahead of time. And they see these people after they leave their body as if they are in all their perfection and glory. They are in young 20s. They're perfectly, if it was a grandmother, she shows up as a 20-year-old, a beautiful 20-year-old. Same with the grandfather. They have meetings, they see, and they interact. Documented cases. You can read, I'm not even going to get into the number of cases that are out there about that. There is enough cases that have convinced me that this is real. This is real. I also believe, and you'll also find in these books, that those sentimental objects that you have were taken from you, are still with you. They're still there. They're just physically not here with you now. If it's meaningful for you to have them, you will have them at all times, and they will come back to you. I'm absolutely convinced that there are no accidents, and it happens for a reason. The key for your happiness today, though, is to accept things as they are, to allow them to be. Because where you are now is you have decided that they are not right. You have decided something is wrong. I'm not disagreeing that I'm not saying that I would disagree with that. I would probably feel the same way. But the fact of the matter is, a decision has been made that something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong. And something has been taken from me. I'm going to offer the suggestion that possibly this happened for a reason. And don't even think about going, well, because I was this person in another life. I'm not talking about that. It's everything that happens is about forgiveness, in my view. There is a reason to accept what happens and move on. So if you can use those tools that I just shared with you to accept the possibility that happened for a reason and to let it go, you can then move on and be happy with your life without them. That's my offering to you. So hopefully that helps. Oh, really? Tell me about that. I want to hear about that. Could you mind sharing? Or no, you know, everything happens for a reason, young lady. So wow.
I didn't see people, but I saw a very bright light and somebody waving me towards them, and I was watching that, like, I don't know, grass and flowers and waterfalls, and it was beautiful. I was at peace. I wanted to go. I was walking. I remember walking towards it, and anything. I was in a coma for 6 months, and the next thing I woke up and I saw this bright light, but it wasn't like this bright, and it was blinding me. And I think the bright light I saw before didn't blind me. It was bright, and it was so peaceful. And people were screaming at me, and I'm like, "You're in white coats," but I don't remember it being like this. And they were doctors telling me, you know, your eyes are open, and then it dawned on me that I wasn't in heaven anymore. I was actually in the critical care unit in the hospital. And I didn't like it. I was like, I want to go back. I was really mad, actually, for a while.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. I have a quick question for you. When you were in that 17-minute period where you didn't want to come back, how real was that for you?
It was like, I'm sitting right here talking to all of you.
Exactly.
I was there.
Exactly.
Absolutely there. I remember, like, feeling like I was floating.
Yeah. Right. But there was nothing physically like that around you, was there?
No, it was like being in a watercolor painting. And there's no other way I can describe it.
Very brilliant colors.
The colors were nothing like anything you would ever see here, ever.
Yeah.
They were so bright.
Luminescent. Yeah.
And I just remember the light in front of me thinking, it was the brightest light I'd ever seen in my life, but yet it wasn't lighting me. And I could see, I didn't see a face, but Ari. And it just, I can't describe it. It gives me goosebumps. I mean, it was beautiful. It was so peaceful. I just wanted to be more. It was amazing.
I will share with you that I believe that those things that mean so much to you that were taken from you still exist there. And if you are to have them, you will have them again. Just like we will see our loved ones again once we are willing to give up and release this body. Remember, this body is just a vehicle for experiencing individuality. I say just, but that's a pretty heavy statement when you think about it. If we are collectively the one infinite creator, then we are just temporarily having the experience of individuality. Because there's only one of us here, right? There's only God. There's only God. That's it. So this experience of individuality must pass. We must relinquish the body. And when we do, we will experience truth. Some people call it heaven. Some people call it nirvana. Some people call it our real home, whatever. But thank you for sharing. That's, and I do believe that we will all experience that. I don't believe it's unique. I don't believe it's just one person experience. there are literally thousands of cases you can read about in various books that describe similar situations to what you just shared. Anybody else? Edie, you had a hand up a while ago. You were going to share.
Oh, the fights that I have in my head that take me out of peace are primarily, I've forgiven other people, but I do not forgive myself. Oh, I pick on myself for things that happened 50, 60 years ago, last week, last minute. It's the one thing that just drains the life out of me. Getting back from that is harder. I grab an affirmation and try and get back with that, but
Yeah, that's tough.
to forgive myself.
Well, I will share. I have a similar issue, and I'm the world's best critic for myself because I suck at a lot of things. But beneath your judgment of yourself is another judgment that says that I'm right. I think I know what I am. And I think I know that what I did was wrong. And I think I know that I could have done better. Could have done better. But underneath that could have been better, could have done better is what? The belief that you know what you should have done. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's the belief that you know what's best for you.
And I'm in your fight and saying, some voice inside me saying, you're doing the best you could.
No, but that when you say you were doing the best you could, that implies that you didn't do good enough. Okay, so no, don't go there. Don't go there. No, let me say this. Every decision that we make in our lives, whether it appears to be good or bad, right or wrong, healthy or unhealthy, every decision that we make is exactly the perfect decision we needed at the time. Think about that. Every decision we've ever made in our life, at the time we made the decision, was perfect for that moment. Now, 30 seconds later, it may not be the same decision. You may choose differently. But at the moment you made that decision, it was the right decision. So, if that's true, and we know it is, then going back and judging yourself and thinking that you could have done better or I wasn't good enough is simply the belief within yourself that I know what's best for me. I know what I should have done. I know. And what's that? The thinking mind. It's I know. The way around that is the same way everything else is to say, I don't know. But I'm going to trust that something else knows. And I'm going to release and let go my insistence on being right. And I'm going to get quiet, and I'm going to get still, and I'm going to let Holy Spirit fill in the void of all the places that I painted where I was not good enough. Let it go. Just let it go. Let it go. Because you don't know everything. You think you do, but you don't. I don't know everything either. Sometimes I think I do, but I don't. Yes, ma'am. This will be our last question, by the way, because we're out of time. Go ahead.
I find out we all judge ourselves harshly, and forgiving other people, and speaking forgiveness to people, isn't as worthy as ourselves.
True. It's the same thing. When you forgive other people, you are forgiving yourself because there's only one of us here. That's the trick that we are in, the individuality thing that we keep forgetting. We think that whenever we judge somebody else, there's a them. There's a them, and then I'm good and righteous, and they stink. But there's only God. So what have you done? You've said, they stink. But what you don't realize is that they are you. They are you having a them experience. Okay, that's all the time we have today. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful. Hopefully. Until the next time, have a wonderful now.